welcome to tonight's Lung Cancer Living Room. Hello, everyone in the room. Thank you for coming, everyone online. Thank you for signing in via YouTube and or Facebook Live. We're so happy to have you, as we are happy to have Dr. Larry Heifetz. Came down all the way from Truckee, California, and the Gene Upshaw Cancer Center. So we're going to be talking a little bit tonight about disparities in lung cancer, particularly around one topic that has to do with tumor boards and why tumor boards are so important to the patient, and some of the exciting things via technology today that Dr. Heifetz is doing with UC Davis and some other centers. So we're very, very excited to have him tonight. So with that, I am going to turn things over to Dr. Larry Heifetz, who is one of my most favorite humans on the planet, let alone one of my most favorite physicians on the planet. And he's been here before. He's moderated a panel of several other people. He was at the gala. Sometimes we see him when we happen to be up in the Tahoe, Truckee area. He's a family friend and a dear, dear human. So instead of what I've historically done is, you know, read bios and CVs, and it's very sort of.
Oh, please don't do that.
I'm not.
Right.
I'm absolutely not. So what I've decided to start doing, and I think it's working out really well, is just have you introduce yourself. Because who better to introduce you than you?
Who are you?
Tell us a little bit
Thank you.
about why lung cancer is important to you.
I have my. I want to show you guys where I live.
It doesn't.
Yeah, it's a tough
suck.
spot.
Yeah.
It's a tough spot.
No, we could. Yeah, here we go. That's where I live. I live up in Truckee.
Right.
In 2003, I finished about 25 years at Cedars-Sinai. Cedars-Sinai is 1,000 beds, 2,000 doctors, and 50 oncologists. We had academic status at UCLA. It was exactly 5 miles down the street. Truckee had, and I needed to recharge my batteries. I really did. Oncology has a cost to the doctor, okay? So I decided to be a ski bum and get good electronic records and play the piano in some blues bars and really, you know, kind of like change it up a little bit. Truckee is in an area where there's about 50,000 people in the whole catchment area, but the little town's only got 15,000 people in it. And they have a 25-bed hospital and 0 oncology. So 100% of the patients in that area had to either drive down the west side of the Sierras to Sacramento or San Francisco or Palo Alto, or the east side to Reno or Carson City, okay? I got recruited by the hospital to, come on, Larry, let's do this. And I said, you're crazy. We can't have a cancer program up here. It's impossible. Well, so we said, okay, what's important here? Well, ASCO, American Society of Clinical Oncology, has a mission. One of its many missions is to reduce cancer health disparities. And you can't experience a greater health disparity than going from Cedars-Sinai to 0 than what I experienced. So how are we going to go through that? Okay, what are the guiding principles that we're going to ask for? The first one, if we're going to do this, we're going to provide care to everybody in our community. It's immoral for us not to treat everybody. So I don't care what kind of insurance you've got, and we told this to the hospital administrators. I don't care if it's Medicare, Medi-Cal, no-Cal, I don't care if you're illegal. Everybody who's living there is going to get treated. That's number one. Number two, we had to reach out, we had to investigate what are those fears in the rural environment that are enhanced over the standard fears of getting a diagnosis like cancer in an urban environment. We had to reach out to thought leaders, and we had, when you got gray hair and some battle scars like me, you know that there's some really smart lung cancer guys at UC Davis. You also know there's some really smart brain tumor guys at UC San Francisco and some serious lymphoma guys at Stanford. But if you go to Stanford, how many guys have ever been to Stanford? You try to ask those guys, are they not the best at everything? Right. Well, okay. But those of us who've kind of been in the street, okay, we know where those jewels are, and we reached out to them, okay? Then we said, if we're out there, we're going to really use technology to lessen the sense of rural isolation. We had to keep local businesses and community leaders engaged. They actually had to raise money to get behind this. So engaging the lay community, not the doctors or the hospital, but actually normal people and some hard-ass business people, okay, like realtors, horrible people, right? You know? But they got behind this and started fundraising to help make it happen. Fear is the primary biologic emotion. Your ministers may tell you it's love, it's fear. These fears are universal for everybody on the planet. That's you're frightened of death, pain, and disability. But these fears are amplified in the rural setting. That's, are you going to get am I standing in front? I'm sorry. Disorganized care? Are you going to become a burden on your family and your caregivers? Do you have any family or caregivers up there? Okay? But the most important one is, are you getting yesterday's therapy? That's what you're really scared of. Okay, all of us on the doctor side of this are in a perfect storm. We've got a rapidly increasing population that's over 65, and that's the vast majority of all of our patients. We have an exponential knowledge-based growth with unpronounceable MIBs, NIBs, MABs, and ZUMABs. I mean, all the brand names you were bandying about, they all end in one of those four. And for not just lung cancer, it's breast cancer, colon, it's everything. And it works in one cancer, doesn't work in another cancer. And in some stage, you use it, and in another stage, you don't use it. And these guidelines and indications change every 3 months. We have a legacy medical education culture. We assume that doctors are the smartest kids in college. They're not. The Silicon Valley guys are the smartest, and the Wall Streeters are. The doctors are supposed to stay up and read journals, and then how do they know what's going on? They listen to drug reps. The whole system is not designed smart for how to stay up with this fabulous knowledge-based growth. So we're actually fighting this with yesterday's thinking. There are 8 NCI-designated comprehensive cancer centers in California. There are none in Nevada. We're about an hour from Nevada. So when community people said, and business people said, Larry, why don't you just affiliate with, you know, one of the big hospitals in Reno? I said, no way. If we're going to do this, we're going to go for the brass ring. We're going to affiliate with one of these 3, Stanford, Davis, or UC San Francisco, okay? Because we're going to do this right and try to make a difference. What is a tumor board? So how do you get good at this stuff? Well, after the Second World War, a couple things happened. We started doing staging because we had rudimentary computers. We started talking to each other. We got out of our ivory towers and thinking that we're smarter than somebody else. We got international. And there was no such thing as an oncologist. So there was no smartass in the room who said he knew what the right answer was, okay? We created a multidisciplinary conference, and that multidisciplinary conference meant you've got a surgeon, you have a primary care doc, you've got a radiologist, not necessarily a radiation therapist, okay? But you would also get a radiation therapist, and you have a pathologist. Now you get a medical oncologist, and you get all kinds of other docs in that room. It's a safe room, which means there's a term in medical school, it's called pimping, okay? When some senior resident tries to make you feel like you don't know squat, okay, by showing off how smart he or she is. That's not allowed in a tumor board. The opposite is the case. If you start acting like that, you're shamed. The question is, what do I do now? That's what we're trying to answer. And you can only answer that question if you're totally safe, which means no patients are allowed in the room. No patients' brothers who are doctors, who are chairman of the board of the hospital, are allowed in the room, okay? Because you've got to be able to think and say, oh man, I blew it, I should have done that. Well, you probably did. Let's do it. How do we fix that? You got to be able to say that with people who you feel safe with. It has been such an important, human experience that now it's done in community hospitals. There's a general tumor board. It could be once every 2 weeks, once a month. But in academic hospitals, they're disease-specific tumor boards. It's so important, it's so valuable, this multidisciplinary experience, that the American College of Surgeons Commission on Cancer insists that unless you have tumor boards and document it and really pay attention to that, you're not going to get certified as by their Commission on Cancer, and you want to be certified. So UC Davis did the unthinkable. They actually moved their tumor boards around. That means they had to tell some surgeon, no, you can't have it at 7:30 because you've had it there for the last 10 years. It's going to be at noon. So every Monday, there's colorectal tumor board, virtual tumor board. Every Tuesday, it's urology. Every Wednesday, it's lung. And every Thursday, it's breast cancer. Okay? It's our new doctor's dining room. We don't go to the dining room to hand out business cards like a whole bunch of your doctors do. Okay? What we do is we go to this dining room, even if we don't have a case to present, and participate with our new partners, the academic leaders. Let me go on for something. So now you've got the idea there's this network of hospitals. We started something from nothing, and we're getting good at these big 4 diseases, all right? So in 1974, Dr. Larry Einhorn left MD Anderson Hospital. I started my fellowship in 1979, in 1977 at MD Anderson Hospital. And I heard about this guy, Larry Einhorn, who was a really smart guy, and he started this new drug called cisplatin for testicular cancer, okay? And in 1974, the probability of living 18 months was 38%. That means if you had advanced testicular cancer in 1974, you were going to die, okay? Now, he started this trial in 74. He published his first abstract in 76, and he published the paper in 78. And by 79, the probability of living 18 months was 80%. That's great. That means it took 4 years to move that survival curve. But if you were living within 200 miles of University of Indiana, where Larry Einhorn was, doing a virtual tumor board like we were, you'd be enrolled and you'd live. All those people, the amount of time that it takes to get buy-in on the knowledge change, even though it's not as dramatic as that 4 years was then, still exists. And you don't care if you're a patient, if it's 3 months difference. You want to have that as soon as the thought leaders say it's the right thing to do. So we noticed that we had patients coming from an hour away from us, way off on the mountains, from really tiny hospitals, tiny 6-bed hospitals, hospitals that are busy going broke. They can't keep a doctor there. And they would have to come to see us, like, you know, when you get chemotherapy, you have to come back on day 8 or 9 for a CBC to be sure that your white count's okay. Or you have to come back for a routine visit and get a CAT scan or a physical exam if you've had breast cancer, and every 3 months for a long time. And what if it's snowing? And why do you need to make that drive? We got real comfortable in front of cameras. So we said, look, instead of having telemedicine be from a major center to everywhere, why don't we create a little node where we are and then have more personalized follow-up for our patients way out in the periphery? So we created telemedicine follow-up office visits. We used nurse practitioners and physician assistants. We integrated diagnostic imaging so we could sit at our desks and see the CAT scan done at the other hospital. It's also good for that other hospital to stay in business by doing a CAT scan instead of having the CAT scan done at our place. We just wanted to compare them. We were not able to integrate the laboratory testing. We still have to use scanning because of all kinds of hospital nonsense. This is what I see in a telemedicine visit. I see my nurse practitioner on the right side of that screen, my patient, okay? This is all pixelated so that for HIPAA, so you really can't see who they are. It's not really a patient, that's my secretary, but anyway. So a computer between them, and they're looking at me, and I'm down here in the lower right corner. Okay? They're looking at me, they're seeing me as big as I'm seeing them like that, okay? Really looking at me. But what I do, as soon as I say hello, we take that thumbnail, we take that picture of them and bring it down to a thumbnail and move it right up to the top of of the computer. Why would we do that? You ever do a Skype with somebody and you're looking at the person's eyes, but you're looking down at the computer screen, and they're looking at your eyes and they're looking down at the computer screen. So when you're talking to somebody on a video conference, you're not looking at them. If you're going to be a doctor talking to patients, you better be looking at them in the eye. It doesn't matter if they think, if you can't see their eyes coming back, as long as they think they're seeing your eyes, you've bridged a major gulf. The technology, with all the people on the spectrum in Silicon Valley not getting the value of serious interpersonal communication, just through your eyes. Little tiny trick, right? So you move yourself up to the top of that, you move them up to the top of the screen so I can look at my patient when we're having a telemedicine visit. Plus, I've got all this real estate now to look at the CAT scan, to look at the flow sheet, the electronic medical record, and it makes sense. So, here we are, 4 days a week. We have this solid pipeline of knowledge, state-of-the-art knowledge from Sacramento, from UC Davis, to Truckee. A few years ago, we opened up our first telemedicine visit clinic in Portola. 6 months later, it was in South Lake Tahoe. 6 months later, it was in Quincy. And 6 months after that, it was in Loyalton. We call that a synaptic knowledge network. A synaptic knowledge network. So just think about your internet signal, okay? And you know that you take your computer and you walk outside and your signal goes away. Or you walk upstairs and your signal dies, right? Our assumption is that knowledge does the same thing over distance. Medical knowledge does the same thing over distance. And we believe this addressed that decreases that degradation of medical knowledge through the virtual tumor boards and our synaptic knowledge network, so that the disparities of cancer care are significantly diminished in this system. Can we prove it? I'm not sure. So here we have the UC Davis Cancer Care Network. What if they did the same thing? Or what if this happened at the 69 other NCI cancer centers around the United States? Pretty cool idea, right? In order to take care of a patient properly out in the country where they don't have a lot of services, we have to provide these services for them. So we created a comprehensive service plan that is completely free to all patients. The hospital administrator said, come on, we can bill for this. No, we're not going to bill for it. Completely free. Its primary support comes from the hospital foundation. It is closely integrated with all of our clinical programs. Every new patient takes the NCCN distress scale. Anybody with a score over 5, it's a thermometer of how anxious you are. And anything, it goes from 0 to 10. Anything over 4, automatically, you're called by our team. And 100% of our treatment patients are seen by a psychotherapist, 100%. The national average is 6. And these are the treatment modalities that are available, all supported by the community. All these modalities, those elements that everyone here kind of wants a little bit of, but you don't know which one, it's all there, okay? Some of them are, and the other part is that you don't need a doctor to order it. Everybody is authorized, everybody, the receptionist, everybody is authorized to say, hey, you know, Mrs. Jones, why don't you sign up for a massage? It might make you feel good, you know, and schedule it.
I've seen the room for the massage.
It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. So we have all these people in the group who are participating, who are not the usual, you know, white coat types, okay, but really add a lot. So that brings, that creates that patient experience, which is very, very important, because otherwise, how are you going to have something work in the middle of nowhere? What are the results? What's in it for UC Davis? We actually have increased their clinical trial numbers. The Cancer Care Network has added 8% last year. It accounts for 8% of the patients enrolled. I mean, that's unheard of for us to be really doing that. And the patients stay with us. They don't have to drive down there to get the experimental drug. We've got the clinical trial going. They have become a preferred site. If I'm presenting a lung cancer case to the guys at Davis, a new case, what, I'm going to send it to UC San Francisco? No way. I'm going to send it to the guys who already know the case, right? So they're getting, the patients can go wherever they want, but they tend to get the big sarcoma cases, the pancreatic cancer cases, the really nasty operations that we have no business doing in a small town. And sometimes you have no business doing it 5 miles from here. Okay? We also provide measurable community outreach that helps the NCI, helps Davis maintain its comprehensive designation. And you don't get any more outreach than Truckee. Now, Tahoe Forest, what's in it for us? From nothing, we've got a whole bunch of certifications that we've really worked hard to get. We've gone from 100% out migration from our primary service area to 62% in migration from outside of our primary service area. Why would anybody do that? Why would they actually choose to come to see us instead of seeing a doctor in Reno or Carson City or Auburn or something like that?
Massage.
Yeah. Well, it's part of it. It's the patient experience, right? We've grown to 3 medical oncologists and 1 radiation oncologist. I'm the 4th medical oncologist, but I'm not seeing patients anymore because I'm just the medical director. And we became a revenue center for this rural hospital. And we now can help support these essential services like labor and delivery and pediatrics and primary care that all lose money for rural hospitals. What are the take-home points? And I'm almost done, guys. Appreciate the 80-20 rule, okay? Get good at the 20% of the diagnoses. So this is a lecture really for doctors, right, this little section, but think about it. Get good at those 20% of instances that account for, of diagnoses that account for 80% of your patients. Really get that. Here's the hardest part. Get smart and stay smart at lunch. This is more than oncology now. Develop virtual, disease-specific, case-based conferences with regional thought leaders. It's the only way to keep up with the exponential knowledge-based growth. This could, just like I've got for cancers, cardiology is heart muscle, valve, rhythm, and coronary artery. You could knock heart disease out of the park with regional thinking like this, okay? The last take-home point is to insist, and it's hard for you guys as patients to think this through, but it's a headache for me, but insist that the hospitals recognize that technology should always be for doctors and patients, not hospital bean counters, okay? To be used to improve the doctor-doctor communication as well as the doctor-patient communication. Enable effective outreach to all of your remote patients and really think about and build all of your systems to address your patients' fears. This is what we did. And I said before, can we prove it? We don't know, but it sure makes good sense.
You can prove it.
Thanks for listening.
you.